Here's how leading is a little bit different. When you're looking at the leadership part of it, you're looking at recognizing the need to change or keep the project on track. So if you have to step in and change something in order to make it work right, then that's just what you have to do. Sometimes it's initiating change, or as Amber put it, holding yourself to a higher value. So hopefully you're leading by example. You may have to provide direction and motivation, and you have to integrate those resources that are assigned. That way you can use them in the most efficient manner. When we first talked about project stakeholders, we talked a little bit about what it takes to manage a stakeholder. Remember my friend that couldn't get his project passed until he went and talked to the biggest opposition leader and worked with that guy, and he got his project passed. When you're a project manager, you can't do it all and get it all done. So that means you need to work with your stakeholders, with your project team, with everyone that's involved in your project. And that takes a lot of relationship managing. Hands-on work is not the same as leading. One of the big principles of management that I'm sure you've had is managing by walking around so that you know what's going on. If you sit in the office all day with the door closed, or even sometimes with the door open, you don't know every little thing that's going on. So by walking around, you can see problems and you can see where you may need to take some corrective action. You have to remember what's important. The thing that you think is important may not be what's important to your project team or to one of your stakeholders. So you have to take their feelings into consideration. So somebody want to say what a stakeholder is? Do y'all remember? Stakeholders are people and organizations that are actively involved in your project or whose interests may be positively or negatively affected by the project. Those stakeholders you need to put on your communication plan for your project. This is a little skeleton diagram. It's on page 342 in your book that tells you who can be some of the stakeholders. It may not include everybody, but it's got other people on here. The one thing I don't see, and I suppose it could go under other organizations, would be your community. The community that you're working in could possibly be a stakeholder for your project, especially if you're throwing an event or you're building a new building or doing something that is going to affect them in some way. I'm sure all of you have heard at one time or another that one hand washes the other. How often have you heard that? Yeah, quite a bit. You know that quid pro quo means you help me out, I'll help you out. Even though it may not be something I'll help you out with right now, you might need a little favor in the future. That's actually just a way of building a relationship. Only thing I'm going to tell you is be careful what you promise, because it can always come back to bite you in a very sensitive area. It's never a good thing. In your book, these are referred to as influence currencies. And that's cooperative relationships that are built on exchange of organizational currencies. The first one they tell you about is task-related currencies. This form of influence comes directly from the project manager's ability to contribute to others accomplishing their work. It could be that they're going to need to give or lend money from their budget to another budget. They might need more personnel. They just might need more money in their budget. Any of that is a task-related currency. Position-related currency is another form of an influence currency. This form of influence stems from a manager's ability to enhance others' promotions within their organization. So this one, you're going to help somebody else get ahead, and hopefully when they get ahead, they'll think of you and help you out when needed. You're going to be acknowledging their effort, accomplishments, or abilities. You're going to provide them with opportunities for linking with others. And networking is always a great thing. Inspiration-related currencies. That's perhaps the most powerful form of influence. A lot of times you're going to find that most sources of inspiration come from people's desire to make a difference and add meaning, not only to their life, but the lives of others. There are a lot of people that are concerned about having a chance to do important things well and doing what's right, going by that higher standard. We also have relationship-related currencies. These currencies have more to do with strengthening the relationship with someone rather than directly accomplishing your project task. And a lot of areas of your life are built on relationships. By having that closeness and that friendship, especially in a project, you have someone you can turn to, maybe bounce ideas off of. And the last type of currency is a personal related currency. This last form of currency deals with individual needs and an overriding sense of self-esteem. Y'all remember way back in some class you took Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Self-esteem was pretty high up there, correct? Same thing. So one of those areas when you first start your project plan is to map dependencies. And that's to look at the social network that you will need or have for your project. The questions you need to ask is, whose cooperation will you need? Whose agreement or approval will we need? And whose opposition would keep us from accomplishing the project? You know, if my friend had asked those questions when he was working on his monkey project we talked about, it probably would have saved him about 3 weeks worth of valuable time. Because at that point, he wouldn't have to go back to that biggest opposition person and get him on board. Because he would have already have worked those differences out beforehand. The people that have the most power over your project and the most interest in your project are probably your most significant stakeholders. And they deserve a lot of attention from you. On page 348 in your book, it lists these questions. These are the ones that you need to ask yourself about those stakeholders, the ones that have the most power and most interest in your project. Management by wandering around. I know y'all have had strategic and maybe individual behavior too, so it's going to be a repeat. But management by wandering around means you have to get out in the